I already made a video in Korean going over all the skill changes, but I figured I'd do it in English too. And kind of give my thoughts and all that. Okay, let's get started. We're gonna skip the beginner because for the most part it's pretty irrelevant. Doesn't matter if there's any big changes or not. So we're just gonna skip the beginner. Let's go to warrior. We'll basically go one by one, each class by class, all the way up to third job, and branching out to different third job advancement and second job advancements as we go. And we'll start with warrior. Okay, so I was looking at this and I saw that there were a couple of things that were interesting. So basically warriors now have their own alchemist skill that hermits had in their third job advancement. It reads, HP naturally regenerates over time. Not just, oh, that's new too. Not just when standing still. So when you're moving around, you're also regenerating a lot of HP. And here's what's really interesting. Increases HP recovery from item by 20%. That is, that's an alchemist skill that hermits have, right? So if you eat like a mana elixir that heals you, oh, it says HP recovery item. So if you take a red potion and it heals you for 100, now it'll heal you for 120. I think it's a pretty smart way that Nexon went on about kind of recovering or trying to fix up the hardships in the earlier levels. From the first closed beta testing, a lot of people said the grind was too hard in the early phase, that meso was so scarce they didn't have enough meso to even buy consumables. And it looks like they tried to make that up by adding in something like this. Pretty cool. Max HP increase. This is a change as well. So basically what it was before is you would have to put all your skill points into max HP increase. At level 10 through 20, warriors were notoriously weak, and it took them a while for them to actually pick up in the first job advancement, and it made it so hard because they had to dedicate and prioritize this skill over anything else in the first job advancement. That's how it was before, because it would give you more HP each time you leveled. Instead of a flat HP of max HP of 25%, every time you leveled, you gain more HP. So people were like, okay, well, I need to put points into this as soon as possible, because every time I'm leveling that I don't have the skill, I'm losing max HP. So that's how it was, but they changed it now where you can raise it later. You can put it lower in the priority list and go straight to like putting points into power strike and slash blast, because how it was, like I said, you have to max this first, and by the time you put a point in power blast or power strike and slash blast, you're like level 15, 16, and for it to actually be somewhat decent and powerful, you're looking at late teens, and all the way up till there you're basically just swinging your fat mace around and your dulled sword and killing snails the entire time. So now you don't have to do that. It's a good improvement. Precise strikes. It gives you accuracy and critical rate. Accuracy, one of the most important stats for warriors. Now you can get it early. It used to be that you get it through mastery only in your second job advancement, and that is no longer the case. The accuracy that you would get from the mastery in the second job advancement has moved down to the first job advancement, and now is called precision strike. And precision strike also gives you some crit rate. Pretty cool. 5%, that's decent. That's half of a 10%. Yes. Iron body. This was also updated and boosted, so it's more relevant. It says temporarily increases your weapon defense, and it increases your weapon defense not by a flat rate, but as a percentile, which is really cool because this skill therefore means will scale really well as you level up and progress in the game. If at level 10 you had 100 weapon defense, so you get only 25 weapon defense from this. If that was in the beginning, later stages when you're level 100, 110, 120, pushing 4th job advancement, and you have like, I don't know, 800 weapon defense, 25 of that is 200 weapon defense. So safe to say, a huge buff. And it also lasts for 10 minutes. Now some buffs actually last for 10 minutes. Isn't that crazy? Is it safe to say you can master HP increase last now? Yeah, you can master this last. Yes. I don't think it will make any changes if you master it in the beginning or if you master it later. Power Strike, Slash Blast, nothing has changed other than Slash Blast it looks like the target went down by 2. Let's go to Fighter. Another interesting updates changes that came were the masteries, especially for warriors that use different weapons, and the passive effects that it would bring. It looks like Sword Mastery at Master level now gives you weapon defense plus 90, compared to Axe Mastery, which at max level gives you 25% chance to inflict bleed, which is a damage over time, ticking damage. Just by looking at it, I would say Axe is better because more damage the better, but I think it actually I would say Axe Mastery is better in bosses. In instances where you have to fight the mob for a longer period of time, I would say Axe Mastery is better. And then for just mobbing, just grinding, maybe it's better to go with Sword Mastery. Here's why I'm unsure. We know it says weapon defense plus 90, but we don't really know what that means yet. We haven't seen the game enough to kind of determine, like, to really, how would you say, it's not personal, right? Like when we see weapon defense 90, I don't really, nobody has really figured out how, is that a high number? Is that a low number? The only way we can kind of make a judgment is when we look at like other skills, which we'll see, that gives you a shit ton of weapon defense, like buffs and stuff. The weapon defense 90, we have no idea what that means yet, but I think this damage is really underwhelming for Axe Mastery. 25% chance to inflict bleed, and it only does 100% damage over 3 seconds. It's a nice addition, and maybe it'll be nice to see that damage tick, and aesthetically it'll be pleasing and the game will be more fun. But if you think about it, I'm going to use old school MapleStory that we know and Maple Land as a reference. If you think about it, most of the time when you grind in MapleStory, especially as a warrior in the later stages, you don't hit the monster more than 3-4 times. You're kind of pushing it, like you're gonna be using so much HP pot to kill a monster that the benefit to loss ratio just extremely way heavy in the, like, you're losing too much. It's in the loss side, you know what I mean? So most of the time the meta is, in Maple Land, you have to kill the enemies within 2 hits, especially for warriors. Because 2 hits is where the benchmark is. After you start hitting the monster for 3 to 4 times, usually it's 3 to 4 for, like, universally for all mobs, they get the chance to trigger their magic attack, which hits you for a truckload more than physical damage. So there's this thing where it's efficient and it's kind of recommended, and it's like a community standard that warriors must kill within 2 to 3 hits. So think about it, you're killing the enemy in 2-3 hits anyway. Would this underwhelming damage over time, extra damage, really make a difference? I would say no, unless you're doing, like, obviously, like I said, elongated battles, bossing and stuff. Maybe that's where this will shine a lot more. So here's Final Attack. Final Attack at max level is a 50% success rate. I think this is an increase because in OSMS this used to be 45 or 40, if I remember. 50%, pretty cool. Now the damage splits though. It does an AoE damage up to 3 enemies. And you'll see that this is for the fighters. Pages and spearmen all have different types of final attack and the effects that it has. And we'll get to that here in a second. But it's just interesting, and a quick analysis and quick side note. They're trying to give each warrior class their own flavor, their own style. And one of the ways they're doing it is by changing up final attack. So sword and axe, the same thing, 140% damage up to 3 enemies, 50% success rate. Yo, what's up, man? Sword booster, same thing, speed stage by 2 for 300 seconds. I think that's how it was back in the day too, so not much has changed there. Now let's look at rage. Rage temporarily increases the attack power of everyone in the party, but also decreases weapon defense. Rage now gives you plus 40 attack power. At first glance, we can be like, whoa, what the hell? That's a lot of damage. Because normally in OSMS, I believe it used to give you plus 8 or plus 12. Anyway, around that number. It was not up there in the 40s, 30s, 20s. And just at first glance, it can seem a lot, but we don't really know what attack power means yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on this for 300 seconds, 5 minutes. Now here's the big one, right? For warriors. Now at second job advancement, warriors can rush. It says, rushes forward a certain distance in the direction you are facing. If there are monsters within the rush range, you can deal damage to up to 4 of them and knock them back a certain distance. While rushing, you will not be knocked back even if attacked by monsters. That's pretty cool, right? So a lot of people have a lot of things to say about rush. I will show you why this isn't that big of a deal. First of all, the range is extremely small. This range is smaller than flash jump and other mobility skills that got added into the game. It's just like a slight momentum forward. I've seen other YouTubers use it, and it just doesn't. You can't jump and use it. Which for flash jump, most of the momentum actually comes from you being able to jump and use flash jump. So you have that aerial momentum, and there's less like drag. Because once you hit the ground, any type of platform, you experience that great drag that slows you down immediately. It's like a nice smooth slide, but because you're in the air for longer, you can't jump while you're using this. So it's like a push forward and you're immediately like halted. But it's a nice add. I think it makes the second job advancement phase of warriors a little bit more engaging and fun. I think it was already engaging and fun anyway with final attack, but maybe they thought they needed to do more. I would say warrior class got the most amount of significant change. And majority of it, the significant amount of it was positive. I think they really favored the warrior class in the past few months of updating after CVT number 1. Okay, let's look at pages. So pages are the knight class that uses a shield. I guess fighters can use a shield too, but pages use blunt weapon and sword. Sword mastery, same thing. Mastery at 10, weapon defense 90. Now blunt mastery is different. At max level, blunt weapon mastery does 20% chance to ignore enemy weapon defense. I think this is the hugest one, and I think naturally pages are going to be the best bossing class later on, with their ability to change their elements whenever. Some bosses do have elemental weaknesses, like Pianus, for example. Imagine you having elemental advantage over Pianus, and then you also ignore 20% of his weapon defense. Mind you, this is percentage again, so this scales extremely well to the late game. Naturally, you're gonna be smashing bosses, right? You're gonna be a boss smasher. 20% chance to ignore enemy weapon defense. And this doesn't even have like how much weapon defense, it just says weapon defense. So and usually when it doesn't apply to bosses, it'll say it doesn't apply to bosses, but it doesn't have that. So I'm just naturally assuming this is going to apply to all sorts of bosses. It'll be huge. Final attack, sword. Okay, here it is. With pages, their final attack is actually condensed into a single enemy. They do less damage. Well, I guess it's about the same damage. It doesn't really matter. But their final attack is how we remember it to be. Now, I don't know, because basically when you use Slash Blast, an AoE skill, and final attack triggered, final attack would mimic Slash Blast at an increased percentage level, increased damage. But this probably will stop it from doing that. You'll probably just attack one enemy with a high single damage. And some people made a really cool point that someone made an interesting point on why they did that. I think they said something like what did he say? Let me see. He says something like they don't want the 20% chance to ignore enemy weapon defense to apply to multiple enemies or something like that. And I was like, actually that's a pretty good point, and it could be that. They don't want it to be too OP. So they just made final attack into a single enemy hitter. Okay, let's move on. Sword booster, blunt booster, same. Threaten, they need to do something with threaten. And I said this yesterday in Korean too. Nobody's going to use this. This is just a point dumper. Leftover points. There we go. Put it in threaten. Enemy speed by -35 and weapon defense by 10. It's not even 10%. It's just 10. You know who has 10 weapon defense? The red snail probably has like 10 weapon defense. So this one is just extremely underwhelming. And for 30 seconds, like I can't imagine a single instance where you would actually use this. Most bosses are stationary, so enemy speed, even if this applied to bosses, you're gonna take 10 weapon defense away from a boss and take away a speed, maybe at Papillatus, because he flies around. If it's able to slow him down, sure. There's your one case of usage, but other than that, extremely underwhelming. In Mapleland, they made it into a percentage base, and it applies to bosses. So what it does in Mapleland is it increases everybody in the raid, whoever is hitting the boss. It's a debuff on the boss, so everybody hitting the boss does more damage. That's how Threaten works in Mapleland, by a percentage. I think it's like it increases the damage intake of a boss by 7%, something like that. So when you use it on a boss, everybody hitting the boss does 7% more damage. They need to make it into something like that, because this is terrible. Rush, same thing, not much different. Let's go to Spearman. Oof, the beloved, the favored. Okay, Spear Mastery at Master level now gives you a 20% crit rate. That's insane. That's bonkers compared to what we've seen above. 창수님 안녕하세요. And Polearm Mastery gives you plus 20 to speed. Even that is bonkers. So one of the reasons why it's difficult to play, they say, warriors are harder to play in the earlier stages of your adventure. One of the reasons is, yes, accuracy issues. But number two, they're very dull, slow, and slow hitting. It's just one slow on top of another slow on top of another slow. You're swinging a big old stick around really slow. You're walking around slow. You just look slow. There's a lot of slows. And to give plus 20 to speed is huge. I would argue bandits are easier to level all the way up to 3rd job advancement than warriors for that reason. Is like they have haste. you know, and having max movement speed and max jump really helps you a lot on especially making the game fun. You're obviously running around faster and killing things faster. But anyway, 20 speed is really good. I would say it would be in the priority list of stats. It would go from weapon attack, strength, accuracy, and then probably speed right after. So it's up there in the importance for warriors. Really cool. And then here's another one, right? So for both polearm and spear, for spearman, final attack at master level now gives you a it basically does the skill drain for hermits or assassins. It absorbs the damage as HP, and I don't see any cooldown on it, so if you keep hitting, you're absorbing HP like nonstop. You probably heal more than the cleric themselves with their nerfed heal with this skill. You hit like a truck, you know, like let's say you're level 40 and you crit for it and you're hitting like 1300. You just healed yourself 130 HP in a single hit. Am I over dramatizing it? I don't think so. I think it's really OP. I think it's really good. Oh, there's that. Now you can see why they're saying spearmans are heavily favored. Booster is the same. Iron Will also got a buff. At master level, at level 30, your weapon defense gets plus 50. 35 chance to ignore knockbacks. So essentially a stance effect for 5 minutes. That's huge. 35% chance is not high, but not terrible, you know. You'll definitely feel it while you're playing it. 35% chance, you're gonna notice when it's like kicking off, you know, and it's working for you. And there's gonna be times when it really saves your butt, when you're on an edge of a platform and you're about to fall off, but it triggers and now you're saved, you know. I can see instances of that and like getting high satisfaction from that happening. And then they have rush. So quick thing to note is, hey, where's hyper body? I don't see hyper body in the spearman. Yeah, hyper body has moved to the third job advancement, so we will get to that later. Let's go into Crusaders, third job advancement. Improved MP recovery. So now, like any recovery skill, you don't have to stand still for it to trigger or like hang on a rope. Now it's just while you're running around grinding or running around in town crafting or whatever, you're recovering HP even while you're moving. I think this was just a quality of life update. Nobody really wants to sit still and watch your HP go up by 30 every 7 seconds. It's just it's super outdated. Nobody wants the game to be that slow. So while you're moving, recovering 22 MP, pretty cool. Combo attack, I think nothing has changed about this. If anything, maybe the damage, but we don't really need to get into anything like number wise because we don't know what it actually means. Damage increased by 20%, could be a lot, could be a little. 20%. Combo attack, the OG combo attack was already 20% anyway, I think. It was 4 or 5 per circle. Oh, anyway, not much has changed with combo attack. Panic and Coma. They got some little additional spices in there. It looks like Panic consumes combo count to attack a single enemy with sword or an axe with a certain chance to inflict darkness. So that's new, right? We can now inflict darkness onto enemies and decrease their accuracy. The power of an attack increases based on number of combo counts. Yeah, that's we already knew that. So the more combo you have, more combo stacks you have, when you use Panic, it does more damage. And on top of that, now at max level, it has a 100% chance to reduce enemies' accuracy for 9 seconds. And on here, it doesn't say anything about bosses. So this is something you can use on bosses, right? Not only that, now you have a reason to proc panic. Because what it used to be was, it was almost like a finisher move for Crusaders. The way I've seen Crusaders play is they keep the combo attack up at all times and just use Power Blast and Slash Blast. Power Strike and Slash Blast. And then use Panic to finish off a mob here and there. But now I think you just have a more reason to weave in, especially at bosses, to keep the boss's accuracy down. You know, the ceiling gap, the skill ceiling has gone up a little bit. So if you want to play it more efficiently, then now you can weave in Panic for the accuracy debuff, yada yada yada. And Coma also got a change. It's an AoE skill still for monsters, right? It has some range to it. And then it also inflicts a bleed at max level, dealing 100% total damage over 3 seconds. So you could technically, right, if I'm being hyper efficient, I would stack all my combo attack. Then I would use Coma to get the bleed dot on him, and I would stack it up again and use Panic, and it lasts for 9 seconds, so I can use like Coma twice before I have to use Panic again. Kind of like that, just weaving in skills. It makes the class feel more interactive and active than before. Pretty cool. Shout, not much has changed. I don't know too much about Shout. It's an underwhelming AoE skill. I don't know if it had evasion for -4 to evasion though, but it does generate combos now. So if you use Shout, when it hits an enemy, it grants 2 combos instead of 1. But most likely you will not use Shout unless they fix because when you use Shout, you're kind of animation locked for longer than you'd normally like to be. So most people don't use Shout. I guess their idea was, well, we don't want people to just sit there and spam Shout and not use these cool skills that we developed for the Crusader. So let's lock people. It's kind of like Dragon Roar 2 for the Dragon Knights. When you use Dragon Roar, you're animation locked for at least 2 seconds. Right? And it's just not ideal to use that as a mobbing skill. Maybe they had the same idea with Shout. So my thing is, will we sit there and get animation locked to generate 2 combos? I don't think so. I don't see that happening. Maybe if it generated 3 combos, but even then, why would you use Shout when you can just use Power Strike 3 times and move your character around and not get animation locked? Yeah, maybe they'll have to do something more to Shout, or maybe it's different. Maybe this version of Shout will be different and you're not animation locked and whatever. Let's go to Armor Crash. At max level now, it reduces the physical defense of nearby monsters up to 4 and set it to 0 for 15 seconds. Set it to 0. So I kind of want to emphasize this because I did it in the other video too. This is extremely OP, by the way. This has no statement about bosses or whatever and whatnot. Even if you're not bossing, let me show you guys something. So right now in Maple Land, Time Temple has come out, and the monsters there, the monsters at the end of the map, right before Pink Beam, I believe they have like 1,000 something weapon defense. So right here, that's the weapon defense, and they have 1,060, right? And this is just kind of for reference. Obviously, we don't know what Classic is going to be. I would imagine the weapon defense for monsters are going to be higher because a lot of things seems to be elevated in this server. But to set the weapon defense to 0 for 15 seconds, you almost have to weave this in. Although there is a cooldown. Man, do they intend on you using this in bossing? Is that what it is? Maybe that's what it is. They want you to use this in bosses. having a cooldown anyway. For 30 seconds, you can set the monster's weapon defense to 0. Right, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I think that's going to be OP, because what it used to be in OSMS is if enemies used a defensive buff or they powered themselves up and put like shield around them, you could use this to get rid of it. It was actually like nullifying the enemy's buff. But now you're actually debuffing the enemy with this. So that's changed considerably. I think the fact that there's a cooldown on it probably is OP, yeah. What do you think about every movement ability except teleport having a cooldown, including rush? Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. So far we talked about the rush in Spearman and all the second job advancement, and yeah, they all have a cooldown. I feel like they should not have given the hermits the cooldown. I think hermits should have just been able to be how they always have been, because I think flash jump is such an iconic skill, man. It's what symbolizes the assassins and hermits. When people decide, man, I want to try a hermit, it's usually after you see one flying by you in town and he's looking like Naruto, you know, and he has a little shadow behind him that's finding him. But the coolest thing about the hermit and the most fun part was the flash jump, and putting a cooldown on that, I just don't like it. And for other classes, having a cooldown I think is well deserved. It would have been nice if they could have made the distinction between the flash jump for hermits and every other mobility except obviously teleport by you know, with the cooldown thing. But you'll see, I'm gonna get into it. Flash jump, you can use flash jump after you jump, and it specifically notes that in the skill description. But any other mobility skill like wind leap and reverse leap and rush, it does not mention anything about double jumping. So although rush's distance here is extremely short, but when you look at flash jump and evasive leap and reverse leap, and we'll get to all that, the distance, actually the range or distance is the same, and they all have a cooldown. But the difference is evasive leap and the difference between evasive leap, wind leap, and flash jump is that the ones that the archers have, it doesn't specify that you can jump, and I think that's huge. And you know, there had to be some sort of a distinction, and I will take what I can get. It would have been nice if they did not give. It would have been nicer. It would have been better if they didn't impose or put in the cooldown for hermits. That's my opinion. I think hermits should have been able to flash jump everywhere like they always have been. But we didn't get that, but we did get slight bit of distinction. Hermits are the only ones that can use their mobility skill while they jump. Other classes, they cannot. It doesn't specify, at least in the skill description. And that aerial momentum is huge in the in-game physics. If you can double jump and you're in the air for longer, you travel more distance. As soon as you touch the platform, as soon as you like put your foot on the ground, you start feeling that drag immediately, and it slows you down. And it happens with Dawn Warriors too. They have a soul rush. You can't use it when you jump, but you can use it while you're stationary, or like when you're just on the ground. When you're planted on the ground, you can use it. You can't use it midair. And it goes about the same. It looks like if I could jump and use it, it would go the same amount as flash jump. But because I don't jump, because you can't use it while you jump, it gives you a shove forward, but you're immediately met by that gravity, and it slows you down drastically. So I think that's going to be the distinction, and that's what's going to give, at least, you know, have hermits their identity in that form. They're going to have, I guess, their own spotlight, their uniqueness. Okay, so let's go to Power Guard. Power Guard has seen a little bit of a change. It does not in here say you reduce the incoming damage, because Power Guard used to not only reflect and return damage, but it would reduce the damage that you would take from the mobs. And in here it only says you return damage, but nothing about intake, like taking reduced damage as well. So that's the change. Let's go to Dragon Knight. So So Dragon Knights, instead of getting an MP recovery, they get something way nicer. They get elemental resistance by 35%. You're going to tell me this partial resistance, this skill, compared to MP recovery skill, that MP recovery skill is remotely close in terms of its like effectiveness. You recover 22 additional MP every 10 seconds, really? Like, compared to 35 increased resistance, fire, ice, and lightning element, I will take this any day. I will take this over, you know, MP recovery. I think that's just silly. They should have gave Crusaders this too. That's just, yeah, this is really OP. And then we have Piercing Crusher. This looks like a different name for Spear Buster. They called it a Spear Buster in OSMS. It's essentially the same, except you have reduced damage now. So this is the nerf. Somebody said, oh, the Spearmans are really strong, third job. You know, they seem way too OP. Yes, they are overall, like, they're very good. But they're not going to be as strong as you remember them to be. 120% is kind of low, although you're attacking 3 times. So what you're going to see is the Crusaders and Knights doing single target damage that is extremely strong, like really high damages, especially when they crit. They're hitting 4, 5, 6,000, and what you're doing is hitting like mobbing enemies. Essentially, you have the ability to hit 3 enemies. You're really like, imagine a warrior who has like a spear, and it's like a 3-headed spear, it's like a trident, and you're like a blender. You're poking, you're grinding them down, right? Because 120% 3 times, you're gonna see damages like 1,500, 1,800, 2,000, compared to your counterpart brothers in arms who's doing like 6-7k on crit. They're gonna feel like a cannon. You're gonna feel like a little ninja grinder. And then they have Dragon Fury. You can attack up to 4 enemies. This is the Slasher or Thresher. They changed the name on some of these skills, and I'm not sure why, but a skill like this did exist in OSMS already. It has a longer x-axis of reach. It has longer reach. You can now attack up to 4 enemies. I just think this is pretty underwhelming as well. I just don't think you need to have 2 mobbing skills. I think they could have made Piercing Crusher a little bit more, a little stronger. Maybe 2 enemies 3 times, but 3 enemy 3 times, it does feel good though. I will say, I have a level 35 Dark Knight on Maple Land, and if they told me that they're gonna change it to hitting 2 enemies 3 times, I would cry. 3 enemy 3 times is so satisfying. But the damage is underwhelming. It did get nerfed. Okay, moving on. Dragon Roar. Dragon Roar now hits 8 enemies instead of 16. The range is the same, and everything else about it is the same. You are animation locked for 2 seconds. That's how I remember it to be, and that's how it is here. Okay, here we go. Power Crash. Power Crash is, I guess it's okay, but I don't think it's as good as Defense Crash or Armor Crash up above that Crusaders have. And maybe this is the trade-off. You get a shittier version of the Crash skills, but then you get partial resistance, 35% increased resistance to everything. And Power Crash at max level is interesting. You decrease the attack power of 4 monsters for 25% for 15 seconds. I'm assuming you can apply this to bosses, just like you can apply power, you can apply Defense Crash into bosses. I'm assuming both of those things I think can be applied to bosses because it doesn't specify that it can't be. When a skill can't be applied, it will specify. So if you use this on bosses, you're taking less damage. Or yeah, I think that's the only time you would use this. It would be cool. It has a cooldown, right? So when skills have cooldowns, you have to automatically think about, okay, when is the most efficient time? When is the best time or best phase for me to use this. And it opens up a new world of trying to manage your cooldowns and getting through certain phases, right? You know who does this really well? Final Fantasy XIV does this really well. They have a lot of big cooldowns that they pop off in transition phases or when the boss is about to do a big damage. And micromanaging these CDs could be another element of gameplay that MapleStory originally did not have, but they could incorporate. Hey Johnny, I would not look only the pure damage and skill formula because the damage formula changed here. Exactly. Yeah, so we're keeping that in mind that these damages, although we're not taking them for like what they are, we're being skeptical and we're just kind of looking at them. Let me make this bigger for you guys. I'm gonna take away the chat because it's kind of in the way. Actually, I can move the chat. Get up here. Perfect. Go. Dragon Blood. Dragon Blood now gives you 60 attack power. More attack power, but again, we don't know what this actually means. Essentially doing the same thing. It ticks your damage, but it makes you stronger. Hyper Body. For 300 seconds, now Hyper Body is in third job advancement. Now you can get it in third job. And I think it makes sense. Let me see what you guys are saying. How much did the third job get nerfed for DK? Not much. I mean, they used to be the strongest class, and I think they still will be really strong. But they're going to be a lot better in instances where there are high concentration of mobs. Single target damage skills, I think Crusaders are gonna have it. They're gonna have the most single target damage, highest damage in that. White Knights are going to be the most flexible, diverse, and they can adapt to any situation because they have that elemental affinity that they can turn on and off, and they just do more damage now. And Dragon Knights are going to be kind of like I said, I made the reference, they're going to be like the Ninja Blade. They're going to be like the grinders, right? They're going to be really good when the boss, or like when you're in a training ground where a lot of monsters are grouped together and stacked. And if you have a Dragon Knight there, because they're hitting 3 enemies, 3 lines, you're grinding them down. So that's kind of like how I picture it in my head. Okay, I'm gonna move on, Naranjo, but I see what you're saying. I just can't read that right now because I'm making a video. Okay, so Hyper Body going into third job, I think is I think it's a good change. I'll be honest, Hyper Body in the second job doesn't really need to be there in my opinion. I'm trying to think of instances where you need Hyper Body to, like where a party needs a Spearman's Hyper Body prior 70. It's nice to have, but that's different than you need to have it. It's nice to have in, Ludi Party Quest, Orbis Party Quest. But Hyper Body was always meant to be a forever skill that really does well and makes the Dragon Knight viable in the late game into bosses, like requiring them to be a permanent member in a party in all scenarios in late game, right? It cements their identity, it cements their place in a party in the community, and you don't really need that in the second job advancement. So moving it up to third and giving other skills to play with in the second job advancement, I think is a good thing. Iron Will and Rush, Rush is probably going to replace Hyper Body, but Hyper Body now moved up to third job and at max level gives you max HP for 30 seconds for 5 minutes. That's a nerf, right? Because it used to be what? I think 200%. It would double your HP and double your MP as well, but now you don't get MP and you get only 30% of your HP. Again, it looks like a nerf, but we are thinking in the paradigm of OSMS. This is new MapleStory. This could actually still be very well viable and good. It is actually good. Just taking it for what it is, increasing your HP for 30% is a great skill. White Knight, improved MP recovery. Again, I don't think this skill is kind of pointless to put points into. Let's look at White Knights. So White Knights, I'll give you guys a little, like those of you that might not know how White Knights work. White Knights are people that play White Knights did not use charged blow for the most part, because it would remove your elemental affinities on weapon, and the time that it took to recharge your weapon was just not worth using charged blows on enemy. So what people did was they just did not put points into this skill up here, and they would stack lightning charge with fire charge. And although the kit's intention is for you to go to different training grounds and make you more flexible than any other class, damage was king and is still king in MapleStory. And how they had it in the past was lightning charge was a stacker. It would just enhance whatever stack you had prior to putting on lightning charge, but it's split between fire charge and ice charge. And fire charge did more damage, and ice charge did significantly less, but they were able to freeze enemies. And then you would add lightning charge on top to make your charges stronger. But all of that has changed. We're about to go over it. But what happened in OSMS and in Mapleland 2 is people obviously prioritize weapon defense. So I'm gonna remove this just for now. People prioritized weapon damage, more damage than anything else, and they would kind of get locked into El Nath after hitting level 70 if you were a White Knight. But now that's not the case anymore, because with Charged Blow, the most significant change is that at max level, you have a 100% chance to maintain charged state. So where prior, even if you maxed out Charged Blow, you were not, I don't think it was even a chance thing. You would just lose your charge and you would have to recharge after you use it. And it was just a hassle. So now having a 100% chance to maintain your charges is pretty good. Let's look at fire charge, ice charge, and lightning charge. I see your guys' chat, but I want to finish this video. So if it's like super long, I can't read it right now. I want to get through this. I'm sorry. Like I said, prior lightning charge was just a stacker, but all of that has changed now. And ice charge was weaker, freezing. Fire charge did more damage, yada, yada, yada. But now everything does plus 20 damage. Lightning, ice, and fire. And then it comes with 75% chance to do their own thing based on the charge that you have. For fire, it's putting a damage over time burn on an enemy, and for ice, you have a 75% chance to freeze enemies, and then lightning charge is 75% chance to electrocute, which is another CC to stun enemies. By looking at it, I think they did this because they want to open it up. They want paladins to have more, they don't want to like subtly get locked into the meta. They're trying to remove the meta, but still give it some flavor, give it some spice, give its own thing. I personally think 100% damage over 3 seconds is really underwhelming. So therefore, if I was playing the White Knight, obviously I would test it, but I would probably go to areas where the mobs have a weaker, they have a weakness towards ice or lightning. I think stunning them and freezing them is a lot better than doing 100% damage over 3 seconds, because you're not going to play this. I don't think it's going to make a significant change. Whether you hit the mob, it's not going to change from hitting the mob 4 times to 3 times. You're probably still gonna have to hit the monster the mob same amount of time. Because warriors' damage is extremely strong and powerful, they do chunks of damage to the enemy. So damage over time sounds good and cool, but realistically, you're not gonna really get the effects of it unless you're bossing, unless you're fighting something with a high HP pool where the battle is longer than just killing monsters in a local training ground. So I would probably go looking for areas where I can freeze and stun enemies so they don't hit me and try to save money. But to each their own. It doesn't really matter because the damage is all 20% at max level. And yeah, and it lasts for 5 minutes. And you can use charge blow at max level to maintain your charge states. It hits 4 enemies. The range is decent. It looks like it's longer than your average melee range. It's like a enhanced version of Slash Blast. So for White Knights, when you get into third job and you're doing your thing in third job, your main attacks are going to be Power Strike, and by third job, Charged Blow will take the place of Slash Blast, and that will be your 2 main skills that you use as you grind. I don't think you can stack the charges anymore. No, it doesn't say anything like that. So lightning charge, like you said, used to be stackable with other charges. They've completely taken that away. One of my chats says he's curious if burn and bleed will go into enemies and bosses that use what is it called, weapon damage. I can't, like, nullify weapon damage, nullify magic damage. They have those buffs like Zakum does and Pianus and yada yada. He's wondering if bleed and burn will still tick when those are up. 그거 좋은 질문이네요. 나도 궁금하긴 하네. 공무 반무 썼을 때 출혈이나 도트 데미지 들어가는지. Let's look at Elemental Crash. Removes enemies' resistance to fire. Okay. Kind of makes sense. You're an elemental warrior. You can remove the enemy's resistance to those skills. To those elements. Pretty cool. I wonder if I wonder how this works. Do you just, like, what if they don't have any resistance? Do they take increased damage? What if you go to a mob and he doesn't have resistance to, like, fire? I don't know. I guess you would only use it when you know the enemy has resistance. A little underwhelming, I will say, compared to the Dragon Knight and Crusader. I think Crusader's what was it? Power Guard? No. Armor Guard, Armor Crash. I think Armor Crash was the best one. Okay, let's go over to Power Guard. Same thing as the Crusader. You return damage, but you don't reduce. Alright, those were the changes for warriors. Let's go to mages. Mage's first job, improve MP recovery. Just like the warriors, magicians now have increased MP recovery from consumables. And the max MP increase has also changed, so you don't have to prioritize anymore and swing your wooden wand like a circus freak at the snails and the slimes. You can actually use your energy bolt and magic claw early on. Great change. Magic Guard. The idea is still the same. All these numbers we don't really need to get into. We're just kind of looking for the idea, because these numbers we don't know. Replaces 80% of HP damage with MP while active. I think that's pretty much the same. And it's a toggle now. That's the main difference. Magic Armor. Magic Armor is so huge. Look at this. So just for reference, Sword Mastery for warriors in second job advancement, when you maxed it out, it gave you plus 90 weapon defense. Magic Armor first job skill in the mage, for the mages. Active for 10 minutes gives you 120 magic and weapon defense. That's why I said we have to kind of, the only way we can kind of put these skills on a scale when it comes to numbers, the only way we can make a judgment is by comparing with other skills that give the same boost. And when you put both of these magic armor and sword mastery on a scale and you weigh it, sword mastery seems a little underwhelming, because you can see magic armor gives 120 to not only weapon defense, it gives 120 to magic defense. Now you put sword mastery and spear mastery on a scale and you weigh it. Now you can kind of see why people are saying spearmen are extremely like OP. You would always take 10% HP absorb over plus 90 weapon defense. I think almost everybody would prefer that. Okay, energy bolt. But that's fine. I mean, we don't need to make everything fair. Dragon Knights have their shine later on. They can be compensated later on. And swords, I don't know. They'll make a comeback somehow. You know what? The compensation can be, they've had their run for 20 plus years. Now let's make blunt weapons and pole arms and spears and axes mainstream now. Let's move on. Energy bolt. Energy bolt, same. Just a simple one target monster bolt of energy that does damage. Magic claw. It hits a single enemy twice. Okay. The higher the mastery, the lower the damage variation. Okay. Basically the same thing, right? Nothing really has changed. It hits the enemy twice for a certain amount of damage. All right. That's the magician. Now let's move on to the second job advancements. Warriors have 3, so this is going to take a while. Okay. Sit tight. MP Eater. So this, I believe, is a nerf than what we are used to. 50% success rate to absorb 50% of enemies' max MP. Right, at max level. I believe the success rate and absorption of the max MP was higher in OSMS. But here in Classic, it looks like people, or even Nexon, acknowledged that it's way too OP. And mages were essentially like, there was no... Mages just did not lose money, okay? They were like money bags walking around. And a huge portion of the reason why is due to this skill, MP Eater. So they nerfed it a little bit. Meditation, party buff. At max level, increases the party magic attack for 25 for 300 seconds. They are really giving us longer buff windows now. You see that? It used to be a lot of skills. The longest one, most of the time, were up to 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes. The short one, like a power guard, I believe at max level was 1.5 minutes. But now majority of these skills are lasting for 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So they're giving us more time with these skills. Clara might be the move with that new magic armor. Saves so much pots. First few levels use one-hand mace and shield. And put magic guard early. Yeah, you need some strength in there, buddy. But I like the idea. It sounds fun. Teleport is the same. Slow. Again, or not again, I guess. I talked about this yesterday. Slow, pretty underwhelming. Reduces the enemy speed by 30 and evasion for 5 for 20 seconds. Probably gonna be like just to have fun with, just so people can have it. I don't see people using this skill in place of other skills, like a damage skill. But pretty underwhelming. Probably just going to be a point dumper towards the end of the game, because Fire Arrow and Poison Breath are both... They both got significant changes, and they kind of work off one another. So you don't choose one or the other. It looks like they want you to use both, and I'll show you why. Fire arrow. Fires a fire arrow created with magic power at a single enemy, dealing fire elemental damage and putting a dot on him. Deals increased damage to obviously fire weak enemies and vice versa. So fire arrow is back to single target damage, and it does a lot of damage and put a damage over time on them. And this is the new skill Poison Breath. And you'll see how Fire Arrow and Poison Breath later on in the third job advancement kind of all come in together. But Poison Breath, I think it just puts more dot on them. So you have to weave both of these skills in and out. You want to keep these dots up to maintain high DPS and be the most efficient Andy you could be. Level 30, Fire Arrow, this. Level 30 Poison Breath, it also puts a dot, right? Yeah, it also puts a dot of 40 basic attack over 5 seconds. And it works like an arrow bomb. When you throw the Poison Breath, it explodes on contact and it hits enemies nearby. So think of it like you throw a smoke grenade, a poisonous smoke grenade, and it pops in the area that it makes contact, and it contaminates every monster in the vicinity. So what you want to do is you want to keep lobbing these Poison Breath grenades and then mow them down with Fire Arrow while these Poison Breath poison damage, or it's actually basic damage, while the dot is ticking. It's kind of weird, it's basic attack. I've never knew what basic attack even means in this game. There's weapon attack and magic attack. What is deals 40 basic attack? Anyway, that's how it's gonna work. So you're gonna weave in Fire Arrow and Poison Breath. It looks like that's their intention. Ice Lightning Wizard. Let's go to the different parts. So Cold Beam. Let's look at Cold Beam. Cold Beam. It's a single target, high hitting damage. And enemies are briefly frozen. So they're still frozen, but soon after. So it says briefly frozen, slowing their actions, not freezing or stopping their actions, right? This is pretty important here. The word frozen might have a different meaning in MapleStory Classic. Okay, because they also have, I believe, this or later on, there's Ice Strike. Ice Strike. This Ice Strike doesn't say freezing enemies. There's no word of freeze in the Ice Strike. They only have slow, right? All monsters except those strong against ice will be briefly slowed, but nowhere in here does it say freeze. So that's the difference that I picked up when I read this the first time. That Ice Strike has the word freeze, but it says slowing their actions. It doesn't say stopping their actions. So I'm like, wait, what does that mean? Does that mean they're still going to be able to move while they're frozen? But what's difference from that and just saying slow, like, you know, what was the Ice Strike terminology? What was the word they used? Basically slow. Why did they put briefly frozen in there instead of just saying enemies hit are slowed? Maybe it's just I'm overthinking it and overanalyzing. But it does say they're going to be frozen, and then maybe shortly after they'll get slowed. But it's a single target damage. Duration says 2 to 3 seconds, so maybe they're slowed for 2 to 3 seconds. Oh, it says right here, slowed for 3 seconds. Thunderbolt has a change as well. It has a 25 chance to be electrocuted. Electrocuted is something new in MapleStory Classic, and it just means stunned. It just means the enemy has a chance to be stunned by electrocution. Really cool. Let's go to Clerics. Heal. Let's see what you guys are saying. Thunderbolt duration 2000 seconds pog. Yeah, I think that's a mistake. That's a typo. 3-second cooldown on flash jump. Any thoughts? I don't like it, I'll be honest. Yeah, I think hermits should not have the cooldown. I think just for hermits, you can have 3-second cooldowns on warriors and archers, But for hermits and chief bandits, maybe chief bandit, you can't give hermits no cooldowns and then chief bandit 3-second cooldowns. That's just not gonna work. So chief bandits and hermits, no cooldown. I think that's what I like. But I will take what I get, because there's still a distinction. I don't know if you know. Flash jump allows you to use it after you jump. Other classes, you can't use it in midair. So there's that distinction and difference. Anyways, let's talk about heal. Heal has changed a lot. Recovery rate has dropped significantly, and now it is shared. That recovery is shared to the entire party member. So if you're healing 100% for yourself, and you're in a party of 6 now, and you guys are in Ludi Party Quest, killing Alishar, or Zakum and doing the raid, everybody's getting healed for 16.6 or 17%, because 100 is getting divided into 6 people. And that's what the number comes out to be. And here's the thing. Here's what I talked about yesterday too. I think this is gonna be one of those things where now we really consider clerics, and we want clerics to start taking the class a lot more seriously, and stop looking at them as a way to make meso only. Like, they're trying to wash that image off and turn them into holy magicians, instead of like, okay, support utility class that people can leech from, or that they can sell leech with. They're money makers, so I can make my Night Lord. They're trying to, I think, cleanse that image. If you're healing each member at 16% compared to 200% before, that's a drastic difference. So when I go to Zakum raid now in OSMS and in Maple Land, you'll see some clerics still rolling in with their yellow umbrella or orange umbrella with their Zakum helm and sauna robe to a raid, because the heal amount is just insane. Whether you're geared bishop or not, or geared priest or not, you're still going to heal your party members' HP almost instantaneously. And you're not doing any damage, so what's the point of speccing and getting good gear for your character? Unless you're going to sell leech later on. There was really no point. There was no incentive to spec your bishop. But now, when you take a priest or a bishop to a raid, and their gear is bottom tier, in the gutters bad, like down bad, you're gonna take a second to reconsider if you want to risk taking that bishop or priest now. And there's a responsibility for bishops to keep your party alive. And in order to do that, you have to meet certain thresholds now. You have to be somewhat geared, so your recovery rate of 17% is sufficient enough for the raid. And, you know, with holy symbol changes, you can also see that they're trying to stop this whole leeching thing and give agency and some responsibility on these clerics, so they can go out there and do damage and basically play as a magician. Not just a hang on the rope here and use holy symbol and give leech and stand in one place and shoot giant ray beams down the sky type of class. They want them to be more involved, right? Invincible. I don't think this has changed much. I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't look too different. And deals non-elemental magic damage to any monster that takes contact damage from the caster. Okay, so it kind of reflects damage too. Okay, so invincible used to reduce damage, that's still there. And it also now reflects damage. I guess that's pretty cool. Bless is a party buff. A lot of it has stayed pretty much the same except for this last bit. HP recovery from the heal skill is increased by 10% for 300 seconds. Accuracy 20, evasion 30, 20, huge boost. These are all going to help you in the long run in elongated fights. And keeping bless up is going to help you out now too. It's going to help you. It's going to be on you to keep the bless up for your party so they don't die without... just making the game more active, you know, more involved. Not just like a hold down one button and fall asleep type of game anymore. You have to manage these buffs and stack these buffs and weave in skills. A lot more engaging. Holy Arrow. This is probably going to be the main damage skill for the clerics. You do a lot of damage against undead and devil-based monsters. It attacks 3 enemies, and these arrows split. These arrows split, just like how double shot splits into multiple enemies that are in front of you. And it's probably going to be your main source of attack. So obviously you can see just from the clerics, because we already knew about Ice Lightning Mage and Fire Poison Mages. They go into their own world looking for elemental weaknesses where they can grind. And now they're doing the same thing with the cleric. They have their own they have their own playstyle. They're still a utility class because they offer a lot of buff, but now they have their own, they have some agency. So they go to devil-based or undead, demon-based monsters, and you go there and you grind. Fire Poison Mages will probably go to like icy areas, I'm guessing Elnath or whatever, and then you'll see Ice Lightning Mages looking for areas where there's a weakness to them. So elements are playing a huge role in MapleStory Classic right now, starting with the White Knights, and now with all the magicians. Okay, let's go to the third job now. Fire Poison Mage. Elemental resistance, pretty good. They're gonna be pretty tanky. 40% increased fire, ice, lightning, and poison. Element amplification. Use additional MP to increase the damage dealt by all magic attacks. So it's a toggle. And you can turn this on to do more damage. Consume 150% MP for that skill, and you increase the damage by 135%. That's pretty cool. Heal Divide was always a mechanic on heal. It still is today, and it doesn't count for self. The other targets with heal. Oh, is that so? I did not know that. Really? I don't know if that's true, actually, because in Maple Land, I don't think the heals get split. Whether I'm in a party or not, and I'm playing a Dark Knight, my HP pool is like 16k, and whether I'm in a party or not, it takes about two clicks of heal and I'm healed up. Let's go to Explosion. Causes a massive explosion around oneself, dealing fire element damage up to 4 monsters. In addition, if the target is afflicted with poison status, deals the remaining damage on status duration all at once and removes the poison status. Deals increased damage to yada yada yada, elemental stuff. So this is where I said poison and fire will all like kind of get into, you know, nobody's gonna pick one or the other. It's efficient for you to use both. So what you want to do is you want to like put the poison down, get these enemies poisoned up, and use explosion as you go around, right? That's what I'm looking at. So in second job advancement, you had, can I do this by this way? Okay, let's do it this way. In second job advancement, you had fire arrow and poison breath. You overlap, you weave in these skills, keep the damage over time up, and that's how you're gonna most likely grind. And in third job advancement, you're still probably using fire arrow, I would assume, for single target damage because it does the most. Actually, I'm lying. At max level, it does the same amount of damage as fire arrow. But the range for fire arrow, because it's a direct shot, it might be longer, so it'll still be used. If not, explosion and poison mist will just kind of replace fire arrow and poison breath. So you put down poison mist and you run around exploding them and detonating the poison debuff that are on the enemies. I wonder if this puts a damage over time as well. I don't think this burns enemies. So maybe if you want to, you can still use fire arrow and put a burn on them and poison on them and explode, going around exploding enemies. Nonetheless, I think the job got more interesting. Job is definitely more interesting and engaging now. instead of running around just farting everywhere in the map and cleaning up when they have a tick of HP left, I think that grind style is extremely dull and mind-numbing. And every fire poison mage that I talk to tells me they hate doing it. So you gotta be a rare breed to enjoy doing that. Just running around, putting mist down, and cleaning them up. Just running circles and teleport. It also consumes a lot of MP, because teleport consumes a lot of MP. Okay, let's go to element composition. So this one was interesting. It basically fuses your fire and poison into a single arrow, and you can do a lot of damage if the enemy is weak to both elements, fire and poison. I can't think of a single monster that has a weakness to fire and poison at the same time. Can you guys? So that's going to be a challenge to find enemies. And elemental composition is not only in fire poison mage, but we'll see that it's also in ice lightning mage. And to find enemies that are weak to both elements, it's going to be really rare. But we don't know what MapleStory Classic has planned, or what they have in mind. You know, maybe they will release monsters that kind of fit nicely into this skill. Seal, don't see people using this too much. So as you can see, it says does not work against boss level monsters, and you'll see this once or twice more. Some skills will say this, because if you can seal a boss, I mean, it's completely broken. Of course, they're not going to allow that on the boss, and they have to kind of put that on here. They don't say this for armor crash and power crash, though. You know what I mean? Armor crash, power crash, threat, all these other skills, other debuff skills on the monster, those skills do not specify that it does not work against boss. So that makes armor crash that much more OP, because it basically takes away their armor to 0. It nullifies their armor. And we already looked at this. Let's look at it one more time. Let's just look at Sakun, right? Oh, what the heck? Where's his stats, bruh? Okay. We'll just look at the last guy in Time Temple right before Pink Bean. This is his weapons defense stat. 1060. If you can make that 0, pretty OP. It does not specify that it does not work on boss level monsters. Spell booster is just it allows you to cast faster by 2 stages. Pretty normal, nothing crazy there. So that was a fire poison mage. Let me look at what you guys are saying before I go. Did I get invited to MS Classic? Yes, sir, I did. For fire poison mage, I would make poison mist a lot bigger, like 1,000 attack range or more, so that it feels like the ultimate poison explosion. That would be insane. That sounds actually really cool. Though it does a lot more against bosses now with poison mist. Can bosses get poisoned? I believe so, yes. Well, let's look at Ice Lightning Wizard in the 3rd job advancement. Elemental resistance, fire poison mages also had this. They have a lot of similar things. Looks like two skills here are different. Ice Strike. Let's look at Ice Strike. Summons a sharp ice fragment above the head of multiple nearby enemies, dealing ice elemental damage. All monsters except those strong against ice will be briefly slowed when hit. Notice it does not mention anything about being frozen or froze or freeze. Deals increased damage to ice weak enemies. Yes, elemental stuff. At level 30, it hits 40 monsters and it slows them for 2 to 3 seconds. Attack range is 200%. Attack range is pretty huge. That's essentially Dragon Roar is 400%, and it's probably like this big. If you are like right here, Dragon Roar is like this big. So Ice Strike is going to be like that big. I think it's still going to be bigger than what we remember it to be. Attack range 200% is pretty big. It's bigger than most people would probably assume. Thunder Spear. This is something new. I think this used to be in 4th job advancement. I haven't seen this. Gathers the power of lightning to create a spear, throwing it at up to 2 enemies in front to deal lightning elemental damage. Deals increased damage to lightning weak enemies. And yep. At max level, it does 240 basic attack and 50% chance to be electrocuted. So this is going to be your main source of attack unless you're in an area where you can use element composition, right? You're going to be using Thunder Spear. A lot of times people just use Ice Strike because it froze them. It's a big AoE. It's just like there was nothing else to really use. But now that Ice Strike is not freezing enemies, you're going to be mobbing and chugging that potion. So you have to really think about, like, what do I want to do here? Do I want to put myself in the middle of a fight and just continuously spam Ice Strike? Is that the right answer? Or do I want to use Thunder Spear that hits up to 2 monsters for 240, essentially 480 damage in a single attack? 480 up to 4 monsters, total damage would be 480. This Thunder Spear is also 480, right? So the damage is going to be the same, except Thunder Spear has a 50% chance of stunning the enemies. I think it's going to be more diverse, hopefully. Well, at least that's what that's what I would think. Like there's the meta of just going Ice Strike only and using Ice Strike only to mob and grind and farm and whatever in the 3rd job advancement for Ice Lightning Mages will change, and it will diversify their I guess skill tree. Some people will want to use Thunder Spear. Maybe there's going to be instances where using Thunder Spear makes more sense than using Ice Strikes, and vice versa. And same thing with element composition. If you are in a training area where the enemy is weak to both Ice and Lightning, obviously you're going to use this than the other. Or actually, you could use this single target, 1 target monster. It does 250. Wait a second. This is actually pretty weak. 1.5 times 250 basic attack damage. Right? What is that? That's like 475? 425? So I'm trying to figure out why I would use this over Thunder Spear. If the enemy is weak to both elements, the damage is increased up to 1.5 times. 1.5 times 250 is still under. Oh, I guess when you're bossing. No, bossing. Yeah, maybe when you're bossing, I guess. This makes more sense. Because the boss actually, yeah, you're right. Because Thunder Spear, they need to have lightning weakness to do more damage. But elemental composition, it does more damage to a single target, first of all. And then if the boss has lightning weakness but not ice weakness, you're still doing more damage. And vice versa, if it has a ice weakness and not a lightning weakness. So I guess in bossing I can see people using element composition. Alright, let's move on and go to clerics now. Oof, this one was a interesting one, right guys? Let's look at priest. This spell, the same thing, it cures debuffs. It's a party buff. Mystic Door, my chat told me that the timer, 3 minutes, this is a debuff that at max level, I think it used to be 5 minutes or so. But now it's only 3 minutes. And yeah, but it still does the same thing. It allows your party member to travel back and forth to town and wherever you're at in the moment that you use the Mystic Door. Holy Symbol, huge change, right? It does. Holy Symbol used to give a bonus experience to the entire party. So when you're grinding together, your entire party would get extra EXP if you had a priest that had Holy Symbol in the party. And the idea of priest was very different back in the day in old school MapleStory. they wanted to cement the clerics as a utility support class. And now they realize that brings on its own set of troubles and flaws, and people manipulate the game. People take advantage of it and like sell leech and stuff. And I think they want to get rid of that and give this class more agency, less dependent on parties, less OP if you are selling that benefit for money. So now instead of giving bonus EXP, you protect yourself with Holy Symbol for 30 minutes, and if you die within that 30-minute window, you resurrect with 35% HP recovered. It has a 45-minute cooldown. Duration at max level lasts for 30 minutes. So you have 15 minutes of window where you can still die. But honestly, I think it's pretty fitting. They're trying to make a holy magician, like a holy mage. It's not a cleric. It's not a healer anymore. They're like holy magicians, holy magic wielders. They're like what would you call them? I feel like crusaders, more crusader, or a holy knight, holy magician. What is a more fitting name? Anyway, they're trying to give him more independence, right? We'll have to see. This is one of those things where judgment is still pending, because you don't know. In other ways, they might still encourage party play, and they have. When you're in a party and you're grinding, you get more EXP. So they already implemented that, so Holy Symbol didn't need to be the way, so people aren't as dependent on Holy Symbol anymore, So I'm on the side of, let's kind of give it a try and see where this takes us, because I'm open-minded to stuff like this. I think I do want to get rid of the leeching culture, the leech culture, and taking a new approach to clerics and changing them in this manner. Instead of being so hasty with judgment and saying this is shit, reverse it. I'm on the boat of let's wait and see how it plays out. They might not do as much damage as the Ice Lightning Mage and Fire Poison Mage, but I think it cements their identity pretty well. They have a lot of buffs, they have a lot of utility still, although the big ones are gone and the ones they had has been nerfed a little bit. But they have been buffed in terms of doing more damage and having more agency. And this right here, I think it's a pretty cool addition to the new identity of clerics. They just have more security, They have more security with heal, with Holy Symbol. They're always covered. It's beginner friendly, maybe. That's a great word. I think it's nice. Heal invincible equals percentage reduction damage, auto revive. Yeah, basically you have a lot of defensive abilities, and if you are, if you're on your toes, you're gonna feel invincible. Yeah. Let's look at Shining Ray. Deals holy attribute damage up to 4 enemies. So it used to be 6, but now it's 4, and it obviously does more damage to undead and demon targets. Mastery level 10, attack range 120. Not much has changed. Maybe the metrics a little bit, but I'm not too familiar with that. Doom, you turn enemies into snails. Again, this clearly states, it cannot be used against boss monster. Obviously, you're not going to turn Zakum and Horntail into a little green snail and squish it. It would be breaking the game. But what I want to emphasize is that there's skills there's descriptions in these skills that specify that it cannot be used against boss monsters. Well, they specify when it's not allowed for boss monsters. So there's some skills that are extremely OP that if it goes through, like nullifying defense to 0, that's going to be extremely OP. I mean, Zakum probably has like 20-30k weapon defense, I would assume. He has a lot of weapon defense. And to make it to 0, maybe they should specify that it cannot be used against boss monsters, because I don't think that is going to be the case. But anyway, Doom morphs the enemies into snails, changes their appearance and everything else. We already knew this. Not much has changed for this. It's a cool, cute little skill, but you're not gonna use this much when you're just playing every day. When you're hanging out and being a heneho, and you're hanging out with your buddies, and you're like, hey, come here. I can turn a red snail into a green snail. Watch this. Show a noob, you know. Make them freak out, like, how'd you do that? Summon dragon, not much has changed. Again, you summon a little dragon. It's the same thing as always. Summon a dragon, and it does damage next to you. Let's go to Bowman. Alright, second job advancement, Hunter. Bow Mastery. When you level up Bow Mastery now, it gives you evasion. Really cool. It used to give you accuracy. No longer is that the case. Give us more evasion. That is so cool. Because bow wielders and archers already prioritize dex as a stat, your accuracy was never lacking. And for bow mastery to give you more accuracy on top of it, it just made no sense. Clear error. They fixed it, and now they're giving us evasion. Big win. Amazon's Judgment. This is something new. And at max level, basically, when you crit, 100% chance to reduce enemy speed for 5 seconds. So this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about archers. This is where I was like, okay, why would they give archers a flash jump, quote unquote flash jump? That's what people are calling it. Why would they give them such a mobility when they know at the same release, in the same release, they're going to give us Amazon's Judgment, which basically cements your identity as a stationary artillery, like ranged damage dealer. Clearly they understand that if they give Amazon's Judgment and you're slowing enemies, right? You have power knockback in the first job, which pushes enemies away. You keep your ground. You have your little area, right? You have your little radius where you don't want enemies you want to keep the enemies away from you. You use power knockback, push the enemies away. You use Amazon's Judgment. When they're getting close, you crit, you slow them from charging at you. All of these skills tells me and shows us that Inkwell and Nexon NA understand the identity of an archer. And it was perfect because it basically was a contradiction. It was basically a contrast of what the assassins were, what the hermits were. Hermits use flash jump all over the place. They create their own space. They run away from the enemy. They kite enemies. Archers, on the other hand, create space by pushing the enemies away from them. They're more stationary. They're not as nimble. They're not as fast as assassins. And you can see that they understand that as well. And what's another one? You know, like arrow bomb. You use arrow bomb, you stun enemies. They have CC, they have agency, they have a closet full of skills that can keep the enemies at bay and not allow them to get close to you. What's another one? There's one more. You have puppet. Enemies are distracted by a puppet far away from you. You have ice shot. This one's Inferno, but range snipers had ice shot. You can freeze and slow enemies that way too. So all of these, Silver Hawk, another one, you stun enemies. 100% chance to stun enemies 1.5 seconds. And then you add in this skill called Wind Step, which basically covers the same distance as Flash Jump. So I already looked into this. The distance covered by Flash Jump is the same as Wind Step, and it leaps you a certain distance in the direction you are facing. And I looked at this at first and I was like, why would they do that? Why would they add Wind Step when they clearly understand and they haven't changed anything to make the playstyle any different? Like, they get that archers are supposed to be more stationary. But then I came to the realization that Hermit's Flash Jump in the skill description says you're allowed to double jump. But here you don't see that. And you'll see when I get to the Thieves part, it says in the skill description that Flash jump acts as a double jump. You can use it immediately or slightly after you jump. Wind step, you cannot do that. And I think in also having 3-second cooldown, I think it's just the oh shit button. Oh shit, I gotta get out of here. Oh shit, I gotta create space. Oh shit, they're charging at me. Oh shit, let me move. 3-second cooldown. It's just like oh shit, help me button. That's it. You're not supposed to be using this. Maybe you'll use it as a mobility once you kind of get comfortable, whatever. And I think to defend that as well, it's 2026. I can see why they want to create a skill like this to appeal to the new audience of players that want to try out MapleStory. Because here's the thing, guys, like there's a core audience, the core player base of MapleStory Classic are playing due to nostalgia. And no matter what you do to the game, these guys are going to come back and dump hours into the game. The real big challenge Nexon has is how can we incorporate, how can we appeal to the younger audience? How can we make them like get through the earlier levels and really see the charm of the game later on? How can we make it a little bit more fun? And I think they're just trying to do a balancing act there. Make sure they don't lose the nostalgia, but at the same time, they don't keep it too pure that the newer audience and the younger generation comes in and they're like, you know, they just been like flying across the sky in Minecraft and falling out of the sky, building like 10-foot stories in mid-sky in Fortnite, and they come to a game like MapleStory and they're like, what the hell, man? I'm like crawling here. I need some stimulation. I need something more, you know? That's my thought process when it comes to the flash jump. I got ahead of myself, so let's go back to final attack because there's definitely some changes here. With the bow, when you trigger final attack, now it does split damage to 3 enemies instead of a single concentrated high damage to 1 enemy. Now it splits into 3, damaging each enemy by 90%. So you can imagine if this crits. So another thing is archers and thieves have higher crit rates than warriors and mages. And in between bowmen and archers and thieves, I think thieves have a higher chance to crit and higher crit damage, maybe. Actually, that's not true. Okay. Thieves have higher critical damage. Archers have a higher critical rate. That's what it was. But still, those two compared to the warrior and mages, they still do more crit. In general, more crit damage. So that's how final attack bow has changed. Hey, what's up, man? I think something like Gunslinger's backstep shot is a cool concept if they add a mobility skill for range DPS. So that's what it's kinda gonna be like. It's basically gonna be that, except you can't use it when you jump. Bow booster, same thing. Nothing has changed. Soul arrow, arrow bomb, none of these have really changed. Maybe the little numbers have changed, but really they do the same thing. Let's go into crossbowman. Crossbow. I think crossbow is way better than bow. Purely for this. Not to mention, I think iron arrow is better than arrow bomb. But crossbow mastery now has a 20% chance to ignore enemy weapon defense. And this does also, this, as you can see, does not specify that this does not work on bosses or anything like that. If you ignore enemy weapon defense and there is no number to specify how much weapon defense or how much percentage of weapon defense, it just means you're gonna ignore weapon defense. And that's a lot of weapon defense. Compared to the bow mastery, you get evasion. It's nice, but I think crossbow mastery is a lot better. 20% chance to ignore enemy weapon defense. That's pretty huge, by the way. So Amazon's Judgment, critical hits reduce enemy speed. We already seen this. And then crossbow, keeping true to high damage, single target damage. Like they're very sturdy and slow, and they're just heavy. They do a lot of damage. Their final attack does 250% damage to a single target. Booster the same, soul arrow the same, and crossbow iron arrow is a little different in sense that now it targets 4 monsters instead of 6. A slight nerf, but I think their damage got buffed. Okay, let's go to third job for Rangers. Mortal Blow is, I believe this got nerfed a little bit. Basically what it does is, if you're in range where you're about to bow whack, if the enemy is below 50% HP, instead of bow whacking, you have 90% success rate to immediately kill that. Or wait, you have a 90% success rate to trigger Mortal Blow, which does 200 damage instead of bow whacking. And if they are lower than 50% HP, you have a 20% success rate to just immediately kill them. And this does not work with bosses. Again, it specifies here. Puppets have not changed. You summon a puppet and distract enemies, creating more space around you and keeping the enemies at bay. Inferno, not much has changed. Again, not much has changed for this, except that it now does a damage over time thing. It has a dot damage. Arrow Rain has a cooldown now, so no longer are you a bow mage. Congratulations, we have conquered. We have done it. We have no longer made the bowman into a mage now. Snipers and rangers cannot spam Arrow Rain and Arrow Eruption anymore. No longer is that the case. You have to use it smart because it has a cooldown, and you have to kind of weave it in here and there, and it forces you. The game and the developers are now forcing you to play the game in a more diverse way, in a more fun and diverse way. Some people are not going to like that, but I think it's a good change. Strafe, same thing, attacks 4 times, damage is 100%. I think the damage got a slight bit of a boost. Silver Hawk. Use a summoning rock, summons a Silver Hawk for 300 seconds, so 5 minutes, and it stuns enemies that are closest to you. If an enemy is charging at you, the Silver Hawk will attack it and stun it, and keep the enemy away from you so it doesn't come and kill you. Wind Step, we talked about this. They're calling this the Archer's Flash Jump. It allows you to leap forward and get out of sticky situations. Has a 3-second cooldown, and it is not a flash jump because you can't use it after you jump. And that's the distinction between flash jump and wind step for rangers and hermits now, archers and thieves. Wind step has to be used while your foot is planted on the ground. Flash jump, you can use it in midair, which that difference alone is going to keep the hermits hopefully relevant and cool and not upset the hermit users too much. Let's go to snipers. Same thing all up here with Mortal Blow and Puppet. Blizzard now, basically I don't think it freezes enemies. It shoots an ice arrow that freezes the surrounding area on an impact, and it's an AoE damage that explodes, right? So you shoot an arrow, it hits the enemy, and the 4 enemies near that enemy will take additional damage. And they do not freeze, but they suffer from a slow. I think they're really trying to keep the freezing thing out of the equation. And now anything in terms of ice damage briefly freezes them if it does, and most of them just kind of become slowed. But yeah, 75% chance to inflict slow even at master level. This has no cooldown. You can spam it if you want to, but the damage is pretty underwhelming compared to your main damage, which is, where is it? Strafe. You basically want to use Blizzard to slow them from approaching you, Puppet, whatever, and you just want to mow them down with Strafe. That's what they want you to do. And Arrow Eruption is probably going to be situation dependent. Depending on what situation you're in, you can weave it in, and if not, you don't. A lot of Rangers are going to be using Strafe, which I love to see. I love strafe. I think strafe is one of the coolest and the most satisfying skill in the game. The way it shoots out 4 arrows, especially if you play a crossbowman, the sound effect of 4 bolts going off consecutively is like music to my ears. And it's just sad that you had skill like arrow eruption and arrow rain, and most people just wanted to spam that all the way up to level 120 because it's an AoE skill. So I welcome this change. I think I am excited to see archers using strafe more. Really cool skill. Golden Eagle, same thing as Silver Hawk. Stun enemies when they get close, yada yada yada. I think the Golden Eagle looks cooler. I think Arrow Eruption looks cooler. Blizzard is definitely better, in my opinion, than Fire Arrow. But Fire Arrow having DOT, damage over time, maybe it's kind of like balanced out now, but I would still prefer the Blizzard over the Fire Arrow. And Evasion Step, this one I definitely think is better than the Wind Step. Evasion Step, if Wind Step is propelling you forward, it's like giving you a push forward. Evasion Step is a push backwards. It's kind of like the Gunslinger's backstep shot. I think this is more fitting for an archer. You never want to jump in, you want to always evade out. Because think about it, you're stationary, you're keeping enemies at bay, but oh shit, they're charging at me, I wasn't ready for this, let me leave. You're stepping backwards. It makes more sense. I think it fits in more. But maybe they just wanted to have that little distinction between crossbowmen, between a sniper and a ranger. Give rangers a front leap, snipers a back leap. Doesn't really matter anyway because it's a simple click on the keyboard to turn the direction and you go whichever way. But I think it's pretty cool. So lastly, let's go to thieves now. Crossbowmen seems kind of better, I feel like. I think so too. Yeah, I think crossbowmen's... like I said, I am biased though, because I'm playing a crossbowman and I think crossbows are cool. But just even looking at the skills itself, I think the kit itself, crossbowmen have better kits. Okay, let's look at assassins. Claw Mastery. So now when you level up Claw Mastery, you get attack power. Congratulations. You are favored within the mastery realm of all classes. Attack power, obviously good. Attack power 20 registers in my brain as a lot, but we don't know the numbers yet and what that means. But it's definitely better than, what was the really crappy one? There was a really crappy one. Damn it, I gotta look because it's gonna bother me. Oh, weapon defense 90. Right? Weapon defense 90 is pure boo-boo, I think. And even bleed, 25% chance to bleed over 100%, you know, dealing 100% total damage over 3 times. Like I said, if you're not going bossing, that's boo-boo too. The best one was the spear, obviously. Crit rate 20% is insane. But for thieves, they get attack power 20. And you also get 25% chance to retrieve the used throwing stars. Really cool. Really cool. So you don't have to go to town and get your stars filled every 10 minutes because you're only rich enough for 2 steelies. Critical throw. There is some difference here. This critical throw and archer's critical shot are different. They're not the same skill. Critical throw gives you less of a rate, so assassins have less critical rate but more critical damage once it procs. On the contrary, the archers and the bowmans have more critical rate percentage, so they crit more, but the damage of individual crit is lower. That's the distinction that they're going with. Maybe they still want to keep the assassins the king when it comes to pure raw damage output. As you can see, that's probably what they have in mind when the mastery gives you attack power, aside from everything else, in place of, it could have been anything else, but they give attack power. Critical throw does more damage. And here we have critical recovery for assassins. When you, at max level, when you land a critical hit, you recover 10 HP and 10 MP with a 30-second cooldown. 30-second cooldown is pretty big for 10% and for 10% HP and MP. I think you're just going to not even realize that it. I think you're just not even gonna realize that it procced, and you're gonna go on about your grinding. But in the end, after 2-3 hours of grinding, you know, you won't feel it, but you definitely have saved Meso because of this skill. I think you're going to want to master critical recovery when you can. I wouldn't forego it. It's not benign. Claw booster, same thing for all booster skills. Haste, same thing. Plus 30 jump, plus 10 jump. So I'll talk about haste real quick. Haste, I believe the change they made. So I believe the changes they made with MapleStory Classic when it comes to speed and jump is that although at max level haste is now giving 10 less speed and 10 less jump, the end point when you receive level 20 haste and get plus 30 and plus 10 jump, you're still going to reach the same speed, velocity, and jump, same speed and jump as you would have in OSMS. I think that 10 extra speed and 10 extra jump was just given to players. Because as I'm running around in MapleStory Classic, I do feel like I'm running around a lot quicker and my jump seems to be a little higher. I can kind of feel that as someone who plays Mapleland. So it's not really a nerf. I think it's just going to all end up being the same later on. Drain. We know Drain. It absorbs the damage you dished out as HP. The most you can absorb is 25% of character's max HP. Can't absorb more than max HP of the enemy. This has no cooldown, but it has a 12% chance to proc a 15% damage as HP, and you're hitting about 240. So it's just kind of compare, just to kind of compare. Lucky 7 at master level does 140 damage, so 280 for Lucky 7. Drain does 240. So the damage is not too different. It's only 40% damage difference. So I think you won't have a huge loss of damage if you're throwing this, because 12% chance is kind of low. Sometimes you're going to have to throw for at least 5-6 stars to just proc it one time. But the damage loss on that to gain 15% HP, I mean, if you wanted to be an efficient Andy, right, you would consider and think about all that. But I think it's pretty cool. 240%, gain HP 15%. That with the critical recovery, you can kind of like form an idea on what they're going for. They want to save some money, maybe. They want to help the assassins out when it comes to saving money for pots and just saving money in general. 호호님 주얼 감사합니다. 감사합니다. 낭만님도 좋은 말 해주셔서 감사합니다. 감사합니다. Let's look at Bandit's second job. Daggers now give you 20% crit rate. And now they have this passive of 20% chance to ignore knockbacks. Really cool. I think Iron Will gave you a 35% chance to ignore knockbacks. But of course, Spearmens are favored. I don't think we went over Spearmen. Whoa, hold up. Let me go back real quick. I don't think we went over Spearmen, did we? Did we talk about Iron Will? I don't think we did. I can't remember if we did or not. Iron Will is no longer a party buff. It's an individual buff that lasts for 5 minutes at max level. And it increases, or it gives you a 35% chance to ignore knockbacks. So a minor version of Stance in your 4th job advancement. And Rush is basically a minor version of Rush from the 4th job advancement. I've seen people use it. Doesn't look like the Rush that I know. And it makes sense. It's in the 2nd job advancement. It's just cool to have. But yeah, I don't remember going over this. Did I skip? I remember going over Threaten. I guess I must have skipped the Spearman when I was going over this. Because I remember going over Dragon Knight, Crusader, and White Knights and all that. Alright, let's go back to Assassins. Or Bandits. instead of critical recovery, was it critical? Critical for assassins, and for bandits, it's nimble recovery. And what it says is recover HP and MP with a certain chance when evading. 30-second cooldown, you recover 10% HP and MP when you evade. So I didn't know this, but apparently bandits have higher avoidability than thieves in general. I knew that was the case, but not due to the stat of avoidability, avoidability, but because their kit of assaulter and boomerang step, there's a lot of iframe in there that you can manipulate, and smoke screen as well. You're just evading all the damn time. But apparently just pure stats, looking at pure stats only, they get more recovery, is what I'm hearing, is what I heard yesterday. So it kind of makes sense. They're trying to cement that idea when it comes to bandits. They're very nimble, they avoid, they evade, they don't get hit often, and they recover HP and MP when they do what they're meant to do. Kind of playing off of their class identity. Really cool. Booster the same, haste the same. Here we go. Steal is what has been changed, and now it has changed into a self buff. It lasts for 30 seconds, and when you, I think on a successful steal, at max level you have a 90% chance to steal. It applies 180% damage, and upon successfully stealing something from the enemy, and 90%, you might as well be 100%, that's pretty high. On success, you get 35 attack power for 30 seconds. So I love chief bandits, and I think bandits are really cool, and I have a soft spot for bandits. But I will say Savage Blow is one of those skills that look cool but get boring extremely fast. It's kind of like Hurricane for Bowmasters. Bowmasters, Hurricane, everybody thinks, oh, Bowmaster's so cool, man. Hurricane, they're like SMGs, they're like machine guns. That's so cool. I want to shoot that fast. But you know what happens? In OSMS, when you play a Bowmaster, you press down one button on the keyboard at a boss, and you're just like, Hey, George, come on, dude, wake up. You gotta use sharp eyes. Oh, my bad, dude. Sharp eyes. Press booster one time, and then you press down control for Hurricane, and you fall asleep. George, wake up. Sharp eyes, please. Oh, my bad, bro. It's extremely boring. Same thing with bandits. When you become a bandit, up to level 70, in OSMS and in Mapleland 2, you're only using Savage Blow. And there is no dynamic change of pace, or there is no offbeat proc based attacks or weaving in with anything. It was literally just Savage Blow, and it was on a rhythm. It's the same pace of skill. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Looks cool as hell, saying some crazy Japanese, Chinese words that I have no idea what the hell it is, but it looks cool as hell. I'm doing 6 lines of damage. Looks really cool, but when you're actually playing through it, up to level 70 before you learn Assaulter, it's mind-numbing. Okay, I've done it, and it's mind-numbing being in Golem Forest. And once you hit level 70 and you unlock that bad boy, Assaulter, nothing quite feels like it, because now you start weaving in Assaulter with Savage Blow, and that weaving in, giving players more than just one button to press, I think is essential. Don't overwhelm it, right? Like WoW or Final Fantasy 14, where you have like 70 icons on a screen that you have to manage. Weaving in Steal and Savage Blow to upkeep your attack power while using Savage Blow to grind, and also even stealing, stunning and stealing, it fits really well with the class identity. They're playing off the class identity while introducing that element of weaving in 2 skills as you're playing the game. Really like it. I'm a fan of this change. Damn it, George, always falling asleep on the goddamn boss, bruh. Wake the hell up, George, or you're kicked from the guild. That laziness is what I like about Bo. Dude, it's too boring, don't you think? What class is more dynamic? What do you mean more dynamic? What class is the most dynamic? Is that what you're asking? The most dynamic class, I would say, in the second job advancement. Ah, man, that's tough because I want to say warriors. Warriors? I don't know. Really, it's really all class is pretty dynamic now. Because warriors get final attack, and that's pretty dynamic. It's offbeat. It's fun. Savage blow. Bandits now have steal with savage blow, and assassins, although they don't have any other skill, they're jumping around and everybody's having fun. You get to use drain. You're managing, one more skill, drain, to recover your HP. Pretty cool. Bowmans, you have iron arrow, arrow bomb, double shot. It's pretty dynamic too. I say they did a pretty good job of, keeping the jobs a bit more interesting than it used to. Let's look at Chief Bandit. Oh boy, Chief Bandits. Let's look at Chief Bandits. Okay, Chakra. Using Dark Sight while below a certain HP threshold slowly restores HP. The recovery cancels if Dark Sight effect ends and cannot trigger again for a certain duration after activation. So you have a cooldown. So what it was Chakra was an active skill that you could use in OSMS. You would stand there, you would look like the Buddha, you would start meditating, and these chakras above you would form, and it would animation lock you for I swear to God, 3 seconds, and you're getting hit for more than the HP that you're getting healed for. So realistically, the only time you could use chakra was to go out of the way, go to a safe platform, sit there and meditate for 3 seconds, when you could have just sucked on 2 inagis, spent maybe even just 1 inagi, 1000 meso, but instead you want to go up there and look cool and get animation locked to summon the Buddha for 3 seconds and heal you for 50% of your HP. Now what it is if it's a passive skill and it works off of Dark Sight. So when you use Dark Sight and you're below 50% HP, it'll restore half of your HP over 3 seconds. I'm assuming you can move around and it doesn't animation lock you. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about Dark Sight, and by the time you're in 3rd job advancement and you're learning Chakra, almost all enemies post 70, post maybe 40 even, start using Magic Attack. And when enemies use Magic Attack, Dark Sight, even if you use Dark Sight, you got hit. So are they gonna fix that? Are they gonna fix that issue of not getting hit? Not only physical damage, but magic damage as well when you use Dark Sight. So maybe they'll do that, and this will be more worth it, because now this can be like a oh shit button. It does have a cooldown, but let's say your pet ran out of potions to munch on. Let's say you ran out of HP potions to munch on, and you're like, oh, I'm freaking out. Let me use Dark Sight. You press Dark Sight. You're invincible, and now your character's healing itself for 3 seconds. And I feel like that's too OP though, you know what I mean? But I mean, it is what it is. I think it's pretty cool. Chief Bandits needed some boost anyway. They were heavily they needed help. Okay, and I think giving them a oh crap button is fair game. Meso Guard, not much has changed. Use mesos to block incoming damage, and you also reduce the meso consumed from the damage you take. Really OP skill. How do you feel about the holy symbol and heal changes? Also, Sin seems pretty good at saving mesos now with drain. At least that's what people keep telling me. Yeah. I did talk about holy symbol and heal changes. I don't want to talk about it again because this video is going on YouTube and I want to go down the list, but you'll be able to see it when I upload the video. Let's go on. Let's move on with Assaulter. So Meso Guard hasn't changed much. Assaulter, even at level 1, it's doing 480% damage. Just to kind of give you guys a perspective how stupid OP that is, I'm playing Maple Land right now. At level 30, Assaulter did 480% damage. Although the stun chance now at max level is like 90% for me, Assaulter got a huge buff. Even at level 1, it does 480% damage, and at max level, it goes up to 600%, but enemies are stunned at 100% chance. I think this is a huge boost. When you hit level 70 and you put that single point into Assaulters, a lot of bandits are going to feel so good. This is going to be a huge dopamine reward, a huge achievement, pat on the back. Good job on going through hell to get to level 70 to unlock one of the coolest skills in the game, Assaulter. Now you're swerving and you're doing damage and you're dodging and you're jumping platforms and manipulating game physics and breaking the game engine. Good time with Assaulter. Band of Thieves, not much has changed. You summon, it's an AoE skill. Not a fan of it. I don't like to use Band of Thieves. It's the same reason. I feel like they should put CD on here as well. Just like they did with Archers with Arrow Rain and Interruption. They need to put a cooldown on this because we don't want people just standing there summoning their Band of Thieves looking like a mage more than a dagger wielder, just using AoE the entire time to grind. Nobody wants to see that. We want to see bandits do bandit things. That's what makes them cool. We don't want it to just be a fantasy or an idea. We need to realize it and like have chief bandits using Assaulter and Savage Blow and all that crap. Okay, so here's another part. Let's talk about Flash Jump first before I talk about Pickpocket and Meso Explosion. Flash Jump, as you can see, this is what I was emphasizing. In the skill description, it says jumps again in midair. Evasive jump, evasive leap, and wind leap, or evasive step and wind step, did not have this specification in there, which tells me that you can only use it while you're on the ground. So hermits and chief bandits have flash jumps that have this special property, I guess, that makes them more unique, more cool. They can use their version of mobility skill flash jump while in air. So they can essentially double jump. Therefore, they're going to cover more ground. And they're going to go farther. So let's talk about Pickpocket and Meso Explosion. Pickpocket got nerfed. 60% chance to drop Mesos upon max level is still the same. But max 15 Meso is a huge nerf. So just to kind of paint a picture for you on what I mean by this, I used to grind on my Chief Bandit with Pickpocket mastered first, and in about 10 minutes, the entire map on the floor would be covered in coins. Covered, I mean, we're talking like at least 100, if not more, coin. And exploding all of those coins at once with Meso Explosion, I'm not advocating that it was a great skill or anything. It's just a satisfaction, right? The feel of it and hearing all those Meso exploding in conjunction, in like one after another and after another in bulks. It sounds like there's a terrorist attack outside your house. It just ear rapes you with the amount of decibels that are coming through your headphones and your earphones, but you love it. That's what makes Chief Bandit so cool, at least for me. You know, I personally didn't put any points in the Band of Thieves because I thought I really enjoy this whole identity of Chief Bandits working Meso offensively and defensively. And it's extremely unique, and no other class has anything like this. So when I was playing the Chief Bandit, I mastered Pickpocket and Meso Explosion. But even then, the damage was super underwhelming. I gotta be honest. I mean, to use it as an AoE, because that's what it is. It's an AoE. When you explode 15 Mesos, it hits like 15 monsters, right? I don't know. This is new, but in the old school MapleStory, you can explode up to, I believe, 15, 16 Mesos, but you would have like 100, 200 Mesos just in the map, and you can just explode it. There were definitely flaws, okay? Like if it was a really, you can only use Meso Explosion and Pickpocket for efficiency and to actually grind efficiently in certain maps where it allows you to. It was very map dependent. I just want to show you guys. what I mean. Most skills, let me show you. So this place is called Laboratory 203. And it kind of looks like this. Here it is. It looks just like this. Can I make this bigger? It looks just like this, right? So this is how the monsters spawn. And when you're standing on this platform here, these guys could walk over to you and they would not touch you. So what you do is you go around the map and you gather the map, and you would make sure to leave behind little trickles of mesos here, and you explode it, and you use savage blow along the way. You're jumping around using savage blow, leaving trails of little coins, and you drag them all over here, and you start spamming savage blow. While you're standing on this stair, you start spamming savage blow, and these mesos would drop like you just got a promotion at the job that you don't care about. Confetti it comes out like a confetti. You just like hit a jackbox and it broke, and coin is just flying out like crazy. They didn't have a limit like it does now of 15 mesos. So at some point, you really have like hundreds of mesos just sitting on this small platform. And what you do is you take the first wave, you grind them down with savage blow and collect the mesos, and you clean up these little mobs here, and they all respawn. And you drag them all back all here using meso explosion with those little trinklings of coin that you left. And you bring them back to a fixed location here, and you stand right there and you spam that fucking meso explosion button, and they melt like cheese on a hot summer day. And it was so satisfying. But that type of grinding, that type of training was so dependent on where you grind that you couldn't do that like everywhere, you know what I mean? And there was definitely flaws. It wasn't, you have to make it work in your own way. And a lot of people didn't want to do that extra amount of homework or work to figure out, hey, where can I use this? And to be honest, aside from that area, I haven't been able to find anywhere else where I can grind like that. So it did need some work. It's bittersweet that they've capped the meso drop, because that was so cool. It was so cool to have all those mesos out there and explode them all at once. Now we can't do that anymore. We can't ear rape ourselves. But basically, your meso at max level is capped at 15, and when you use one meso explosion, it explodes 15 coins. So you use it once, you collect it again, you use it once, you collect it again. Now, I think the damage algorithm and the damage is going to change. It doesn't really say. It just says mastery of 150%. It doesn't tell you like what the algorithm or the formula is for damage. But my assumption is they're going to revamp this and work meso explosion so it works. Like people can actually use it in conjunction with pickpocket. Not only when they're dropping 50k meso bags at bosses or at gobies, but actually using pickpocket in conjunction with meso explosion. They need to figure out how they're going to make that work, because it's too special, it's too unique and rare for them to just forego it and tell people, oh, you got Band of Thieves, don't worry about it. No, pickpocket and meso explosion it's a huge part of the Chief Bandit's identity. All right, I talked enough about Chief Bandits. Let's go to Hermits. Hermits have something called a claw guard now. So when you have a claw equipped, you get weapon defense and 5% chance to block physical attacks. Really cool, right? Pretty cool. Really interesting. It's nothing too crazy. It's a very subtle 5% chance to block damage. And when you're about to die, there's definitely gonna be instances when you're about to die and that 5% triggers and it saves you, and you're like, thank the Lord that triggered, because I would have died at level 80 and lose like 7% of my hard-earned EXP. Pretty cool. I like it. I have no complaints. Meso Saver. What is this? This is new. I don't think I saw this yesterday. Wait, what the hell? What is this? Did they update this today? Again? I think they updated this again. Hold up. I definitely did not see this yesterday. Meso Saver for hermits, right? Protect yourself with Meso. While the effect is active, it prevents death once when in critical danger and recovers a certain amount of HP. Okay, I did not see this yesterday. But anyway, it looks like it's a holy symbol for hermits, and it consumes a magic rock. That's pretty crazy. Let's look at Shadow Partner. You consume a summoning rock, and you summon a Shadow Partner that deals extra damage. This has not changed at all. Shadow Web, snaring enemies for 5 seconds. This hasn't changed either. Not much usage. No, like I can't really think of a scenario where you can use this and incorporate this. This might be just for fun, funsies. You throw it around, kind of shoot your web everywhere. Shadow Meso replaces MP with Mesos and attacks enemies with the damage based on the amount of Mesos thrown. Nullifies the monster's weapon defense and magic guard up. Okay, so throw 500 Meso to deal 8x damage. What is 8x damage? Chance to reduce Meso cost by 50% based on dex. Interesting. Interesting. Replaces MP with Mesos and attacks enemies with the damage based on the amount of Mesos thrown. But it looks like the amount of Meso you can throw is fixed. But that's cool. I mean, you can kind of use this in those phases when the boss use weapon defense up or magic guard up and they don't take any damage. Or you can ask one of your warriors to use armor crash or power crash or elemental crash and get it taken off anyway. So I don't really see people putting 30 points into Shadow Meso, but it's a cool skill nonetheless. Avenger, pretty much the same, but the ammo you use has changed, right? The ammo per use has changed, and this is kind of the case for other projectile throwing classes as well, like the archers. It's not always just using one ammo now. It uses a whole variety of ammos depending on a spectrum of arrow depending on what skill it is. I think arrow eruption and arrow rain use like 5, and now Avenger's using 4. Again, flash jump, you can use it again in midair. Pretty cool. So that basically wraps up all the skill changes in MapleStory Classic. What is my overall opinion? I'm welcoming the change. I'm trying to be open-minded and welcome the change, and more on the boat of before we make a judgment, let's kind of try it out, because we don't even know what new things are coming when the game actually launches, or when Orbis and Ludi comes out here in a few days in the closed beta and people see how things are. There's so many things that could be different that it's kind of silly to use our prior experiences and knowledge and compare it to the skin changes that have been made. We'll see how things are when the 4th job comes out. I'm welcoming the change. I think it's great. I think everything looks cool. Even the warriors, mages, the priest with the holy symbol and everything. I'm all for it, up for it. I want to give it a go and I want to give it a try. Anyways, that's the video for the skill changes in MapleStory Classic. Flash jump now has 3-second cooldown. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I wish they took the 3-second cooldown away for thieves, specifically just thieves, but I don't see that happening really. Anyways, right, that's the end of the YouTube video.